The nebula around Jonah Hale's ship glowed like a giant cloud of purple smoke, twisting and curling in slow motion. Space here was thick with dust and strange particles that confused scanners, so most pilots stayed far away. But Jonah was not like most pilots. He was a scavenger, one of the people who made their living by exploring abandoned places, collecting broken technology, and selling whatever valuable objects they found. Jonah's ship, the Starcatcher, was small but tough. The paint was scratched, one engine rattled sometimes, and the lights flickered whenever the power grid felt moody. But Jonah loved it, because the Starcatcher had carried him through more dangerous places than he could count. Today, though, something felt different. As he drifted deeper into the nebula, his scanners picked up a signal. It was weak, barely even there. If Jonah had been 1 centimeter farther away, he would have missed it completely. He stared at the blinking dot on his screen, raising an eyebrow. "What in the world are you?" he whispered. The signal was not like any emergency beacon he recognized. It wasn't a normal radio transmission either. It was old in a way he could feel in his bones, like the echo of something forgotten by time. Jonah leaned back in his chair. "All right, let's take a look." With a few taps, he changed course and guided the ship toward the signal. As he approached, the nebula around him grew thicker, until it looked like he was flying through a glowing fog. Then, slowly, a dark shape began to appear in the distance. At first, it looked like a mountain made of metal, but as he got closer, Jonah realized what he was seeing. A ship, a massive ancient starship, bigger than any human ship he had ever seen. Its hull was covered in strange curves and patterns that looked almost like vines or bones. Parts of it were cracked, others burned, and many sections floated in pieces around it like broken wings. Jonah's mouth fell open. This thing is enormous. Nobody built ships like this anymore. In fact, Jonah wasn't sure anyone ever had. It did not match any known species in the galactic records he knew. The design was too strange, too organic, almost like the ship had grown instead of being built. He scanned it, expecting to find nothing alive. Instead, the scanner beeped, life sign detected. Jonah froze. That can't be right. He checked again. The signal was faint, so faint the computer struggled to lock onto it. But it was there. A life form. Inside a ship that looked like it had been dead for thousands of years. "What kind of thing survives 2,000 years alone out here?" Jonah whispered. His stomach tightened, but curiosity was stronger than fear. Jonah had always believed that every abandoned place had a story, and this one felt like the biggest story of his life. He grabbed his helmet, locked it in place, and guided the Starcatcher toward an opening in the side of the alien ship. The docking process was rough because the ship was unstable and drifting slightly, but after a few minutes, Jonah secured the connection. He took a deep breath and opened the hatch. A gust of cold air rushed into his ship. The alien vessel smelled like metal, dust, and something ancient, like a forgotten tomb. Jonah stepped inside with his flashlight. The walls around him pulsed faintly, as if glowing from some hidden energy deep within, though most of it had faded long ago. The floor was uneven, and broken pieces of technology lay scattered everywhere. The deeper he went, the quieter everything became. Even his own breathing sounded too loud in this strange place. "Hello?" Jonah called softly. His voice echoed through the corridors, coming back to him in strange, stretched-out tones. He followed the scanner, which now pointed him toward the center of the ship. The hallways twisted like a maze, but somehow Jonah felt like he was going the correct way. It was as if the ship itself wanted him to find whatever was waiting. The corridor finally opened into a large chamber. Jonah stopped at the entrance and stared. At the center of the room was a stasis pod. It was shaped like a long, narrow coffin with an oval window at the top. The glass-like material was cracked in several places, and faint frost covered its edges. Strange symbols ran down the sides, glowing weakly like fading embers. Inside the pod lay a woman, or at least Jonah thought she was a woman. Her body looked fragile, almost skeletal. Her skin was pale and cracked, like something that had almost turned to dust. Yet there was still something graceful about her long limbs and delicate facial features. Her hair, silver and thin, floated around her head inside the pod. Jonah approached slowly, heart pounding. The scanner on his wrist beeped again. Life sign confirmed. "How are you alive?" he whispered. He pressed a hand against the pod's surface. It was freezing cold, cold enough to burn his fingertips. This stasis chamber must have been running for centuries, maybe even millennia, but it was failing now. The cracks suggested that whatever technology kept her preserved was reaching its final moments. Jonah studied the pod. He wasn't an expert in alien machines, but he recognized emergency symbols, warning lights, flashing red patterns, and a slow, rhythmic beep. She was dying. If he didn't do something, she would fade away forever. Jonah hesitated, thinking through the risks. Opening a broken stasis pod could be dangerous. Sometimes the sudden change in environment killed the preserved person instantly. But leaving her here meant she would die anyway. "I hope I'm not making a mistake," he murmured. Jonah searched for the manual latch, following lines and shapes on the pod's surface. He found a panel with a triangular symbol and pressed it. A small compartment slid open, revealing a handle. He grabbed it, braced his feet, and pulled. The pod resisted. He pulled harder. With a loud hiss like escaping air, the seal broke. Fog burst out, filling the chamber with mist so cold Jonah's visor frosted over. He coughed, waving the air away, and leaned over the pod. The woman's eyes were closed at first. Her breathing was faint, barely there. Her chest rose maybe once every 15 seconds. Jonah took a step back, not wanting to startle her if she woke. But then he froze as her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, painfully, her eyes opened. They glowed, not brightly but softly, like two dim stars trying to shine again. Her gaze was unfocused, confused, and weak. She stared upward as if trying to remember where she was. Then her eyes moved to Jonah. Jonah held up his hands. "Easy, you're safe." A long silence hung between them. The woman's lips trembled as she tried to speak. No sound came out at first, only a dry rasp. She swallowed, or tried to, and forced out a whisper. A word Jonah's translator struggled to process. "Free." The voice was weak, almost broken, but the emotion behind it was clear. Relief, sadness, and something Jonah could not name. Time seemed to stop in that ruined chamber, with the alien woman lying half dead in her broken pod, and Jonah standing in the cold mist. He suddenly felt the weight of what he had done. He had opened a tomb. He had awakened someone from a forgotten era. And now, he had no idea what would happen next. "Who are you?" he asked softly. The woman blinked slowly, her glowing eyes dimming. Her body shivered as if trying to hold on to the last threads of life. Jonah reached gently into the pod, sliding a hand under her shoulders to lift her a little. She was lighter than he expected, far too light for someone her size, as if her bones were hollow or her muscles had faded into nothing. "Stay with me," he whispered. "You're not alone anymore." But the woman's eyes closed again, her breath slowing. Jonah felt panic rising. He didn't know how much time she had left, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't leave her here. He needed to bring her to his ship, where he at least had basic medical tools and warmth. He gently lifted her out of the pod. Her body was cold, colder than ice, but she stirred slightly when he moved her. "Easy. I've got you," Jonah said. He carried her toward the exit, glancing back once at the ancient room. The stasis pod's lights dimmed entirely, almost like it had been waiting all these centuries for someone to open it. And now, its purpose was done. As Jonah moved through the hallway, the ship creaked around him, groaning like an old creature taking its final breaths. The walls dimmed, and the faint lights flickered out one by one. It felt like the ship was dying now that its last passenger had been found. Jonah tightened his grip on the woman and whispered, "You're free now. I'll help you survive. I promise." But deep in his heart, he wondered, what exactly had he set free? And was the galaxy ready for her return? Jonah carried the alien woman into the Starcatcher with careful, steady steps. Her body was so cold that his arms felt numb just holding her. Every breath she took was slow, like her lungs were struggling to remember how to work. Jonah guided the hatch shut behind them, sealing out the cold air from the dead alien ship. The moment the door closed, the ship's heaters kicked in with a low hum. Warm air washed over Jonah's suit and over the fragile woman in his arms. His helmet's visor fogged slightly, but he didn't care. He needed to get her to the medical cot. He laid her down gently on a soft, padded bed in the corner of the ship's main cabin. The lights in the room brightened automatically, adjusting to detect an unfamiliar life form. Jonah removed his helmet and wiped sweat from his forehead. The whole rescue had taken only minutes, but it felt like hours. The woman lay still, her breathing shallow. Her long, silver hair spread across the pillow like thin threads of moonlight. Her skin looked almost translucent, cracked in places like delicate porcelain that had aged too long. Jonah's heart tightened. "Come on, stay with me." He grabbed a thermal blanket and wrapped it around her. Then he connected a small medical scanner to her wrist. The device beeped uncertainly as it tried to read her vitals, confused by her alien physiology. The numbers on the screen flickered, but one thing was clear. Her body temperature was dangerously low. He turned up the room's heat a few more degrees. For a moment, Jonah just stood there, staring at the woman who should have been dead 2,000 years ago. He had never seen a species like her before. Graceful, elegant, and somehow familiar in a way he couldn't explain. The translator device he carried was still processing the faint word she had spoken earlier. Free. Free from what? The stasis pod? A war? A prison? Jonah didn't know, but he felt the weight of her voice even now. Something about it had sounded ancient, heavy with meaning. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat, watching her chest rise and fall. It was slow, but at least it continued. After several minutes, the woman's fingers twitched. Jonah leaned forward. "Hey, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open again, those same glowing dim lights like stars hidden behind thick clouds. She looked around, confused, blinking at the strange human technology surrounding her. Her gaze eventually settled on Jonah. For a few seconds, there was silence. Her expression was unreadable, neither afraid nor angry, just tired. Then she whispered something again, but this time the translator reacted faster. "Where am I?" The words came out shaky and dry, but clear. Jonah sat up straight. "You're on my ship. I brought you here." She blinked, processing that. Her voice was barely more than a breath. "You opened the hatch." "Yeah," Jonah said softly. "Your pod was failing. You were dying." A long pause followed. "You should not have opened it," she whispered. Her tone was not angry, it was sad. Jonah frowned. "If I hadn't, you'd be gone by now." The woman closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, they were a little clearer, a little brighter. She studied Jonah's face as if trying to understand what kind of creature he was. "What species?" she asked. "Human," Jonah replied. "My name's Jonah Hale." Her lips parted slightly. "Human. I know that word." Jonah's eyebrows shot up. "You do?" She nodded weakly. "Your kind were young once, still learning the stars." Her breath hitched. So much time has passed. Jonah leaned in. How long were you inside that pod? Her eyes looked distant, unfocused. 2,348 standard years. A tremor ran through her hands. My stasis chamber cracked. I could feel everything fading. Jonah swallowed hard. He had guessed the ship was ancient, but hearing it directly shook him. What happened to your people? He asked gently. Her face tightened in grief. Even in her weak state, the pain was clear. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out for several seconds. Finally, she whispered a name. Etheri. Jonah repeated it softly. Etheri. Is that your species? Yes, she breathed. We were the Etheri Concord, guardians of the outer spiral. Civilization of light and harmony. Her voice cracked. All gone now. Jonah felt a chill. What do you mean all gone? Tears formed in the corners of her glowing eyes. Destroyed. Consumed by a plague of machines, a storm of metal and hunger. She tried to lift her hand, but failed. Jonah caught it before it fell. Rest, he said quietly. You don't have to talk if it hurts. But she shook her head slowly. You opened the pod. You deserve answers. Her breathing steadied just a little. Jonah held her hand lightly, afraid it might break if he squeezed too hard. There was a war, she continued. A war so large the stars themselves dimmed from it. Her voice was soft but strong enough to tell the story. The enemy unleashed the nanoplague, machines the size of dust. They ate everything, metal, energy, flesh. Entire worlds turned to ash. Jonah felt his throat tighten. And your ship? It was my duty, she whispered. I commanded the retreat of our last fleet. I stayed behind to stop the plague from reaching the core worlds. A tear slid down her cheek. But I failed. The plague spread. My ship was damaged. We fled into the nebula. Her voice shook. I sealed myself in the pod to stop the plague inside me. Jonah froze. Inside? You? She nodded weakly. Exposure. I held it back, but not forever. Her chest rose in a shaky breath. The stasis chamber stopped it, but time still destroys. Her hand trembled in Jonah's. I should have died long ago. Jonah shook his head. You're alive now. You made it this far. Her eyes softened. Because of you. The room hummed quietly, the ship's lights glowing warm and gentle. Jonah placed a fresh blanket over her and checked the scanner again. Her temperature was rising, which was good. Her heart rhythm, however, was erratic. What is your name? He asked softly. She hesitated, then whispered. Veres. Jonah repeated it carefully. Veres. Her eyes closed again, but she was still awake. You saved me, Jonah Hale. He gave a small smile. I'm just trying to help. Her gaze shifted toward the ceiling. Humans. Always moving forward. Always reaching. Even when the universe tells them no. Jonah chuckled quietly. I guess we're stubborn. Stubbornness is a kind of strength, Veres murmured. My people did not understand that. We believed only in harmony, but harmony without courage cannot survive chaos. Jonah didn't know what to say to that. After a long silence, Veres asked, Your people still live? Yes, Jonah said. We're not the strongest species out there, but we're growing, exploring, learning. That is good, Veres whispered. I am glad the galaxy still remembers life. Jonah felt a strange sadness in her words. She spoke like someone who had lost everything, and now woke to a universe she no longer recognized. Suddenly, the ship shuddered lightly. Jonah's head snapped up. He tapped the console on the wall. A warning flashed across the screen. Unstable energy detected. Veres's eyes widened slightly. The ship, she whispered. My ship. It is dying. Jonah frowned. What do you mean? "The core," she said weakly. "It was damaged long ago. My awakening may have disturbed it." As if to confirm her words, the nebula outside flickered with bursts of pale light. Jonah rushed to the cockpit and checked the displays. The alien ship he had docked to was beginning to drift and twist, as if its structure were collapsing. A cold wave went through him. He returned to Varys. "We need to leave this area. Your ship, something's happening to it." Varys nodded faintly. "Take me away. Take us far from here." Jonah lifted her gently again. She was a little warmer now, but still fragile. He placed her in a reclined seat near the cockpit, secured her with soft straps, and moved to the pilot's chair. The Starcatcher detached from the alien hull with a metallic clunk. Then Jonah fired the engines and guided the ship out of the nebula. As they left, Varys watched through the window. A single tear slid down her cheek as the giant, broken vessel that had been her home and her prison slowly crumbled into drifting pieces. "Goodbye," she whispered. Jonah glanced at her. "We'll figure this out. You're not alone anymore." Varys looked at him, her glowing eyes softening. "For the first time in 2,000 years, she murmured. "I believe that might be true." The Starcatcher drifted away from the dying alien ship, glowing faintly against the purple clouds of the nebula. Jonah kept his hand steady on the controls, guiding the vessel through thicker patches of dust. The engines hummed softly, but Jonah's mind was loud with questions. 2,000 years, an entire civilization gone, a woman who carried the last memories of a dead age. And now she sat behind him, weak but alive. Jonah stole a glance at Varys. She was strapped safely into the reclined seat, wrapped in blankets. Her silver hair still looked fragile, and her cracked skin carried the marks of centuries inside the stasis pod. But her eyes, those dim, glowing lights, were open now, following the nebula's shifting colors with a sad, distant expression. "You okay back there?" Jonah asked. Her gaze moved to him slowly, like her mind traveled from far away. "I am stable," she said softly. "Your medical tools have helped. My body still fails, but I can breathe." Jonah nodded. "Good. That's a start." But Varys didn't smile. Instead, her eyes narrowed slightly as she stared at the nebula swirling behind them. "There is something wrong," she whispered. Jonah frowned. "Wrong? With what?" "Everything feels disturbed, as if the nebula is reacting to a force inside it. My ship's collapse. Its energy core was unstable. If the core fractures, it may release dangerous waves." Jonah stiffened. "Dangerous how?" Varys closed her eyes for a moment. "The Aetheri used cores made from living energy. If they die violently, the energy can twist space around them. It can tear open unstable tunnels." Her voice grew soft. "It can attract unwanted things." Jonah turned the ship's sensors on full power. "Then we don't stay here a second longer." But before the Starcatcher could leave the nebula completely, the ship suddenly jolted. A sharp alarm beeped across the control panel. Proximity alert. Jonah grabbed the controls. "What now?" Varys's eyes opened wide, glowing brighter. "I feel something. Something waking up." The screen flickered, then displayed a shape approaching through the fog, a small metallic sphere drifting toward them. It was no bigger than a helmet, its surface covered in strange, insect-like lines. "What is that?" Jonah breathed. Varys's voice trembled. "A fragment, a shard of the nanoplague." Jonah froze. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. "Wait! This is part of that machine plague you told me about?" "Yes," Varys whispered. "It must have awakened when the ship collapsed." The sphere suddenly scanned them with a thin red line. The Starcatcher creaked as its systems dimmed for a second. Jonah cursed. "It's trying to hack us." Varys gripped the seat straps. "Do not let it touch the hull. The plague adapts. It consumes everything. Jonah didn't need more warning. He punched the thrusters. The ship shot backward as the metallic sphere darted forward with deadly speed. It was small, but it moved like a hunting predator. Jonah dodged left, then down, weaving through the glowing dust clouds. The sphere followed, matching the Starcatcher's movements perfectly. "It's tracking us!" Jonah shouted. "It learns quickly," Varys said. "But it is only one fragment. You can outmaneuver it." Jonah gritted his teeth. "We'll see." He spun the ship into a tight corkscrew, flying between jagged pieces of old alien debris floating through the nebula. A broken fin from Varys's ship drifted past like a silent ghost. Jonah skimmed close enough that the metal scraped the Starcatcher's underside. The sphere shot straight into the debris, slamming off the edge. It spun for a moment, disoriented. Jonah seized the chance and blasted forward. "We're almost out," he said. Varys watched the sphere recovering, its tiny form glowing with an eerie silver light. "It will follow. The plague never stops." "We'll get rid of it," Jonah said firmly. "Trust me." He pushed the ship out of the nebula into clearer space. The stars shone bright ahead, a beautiful ocean of black and silver. But behind them, the small sphere zipped out of the nebula like a bullet streaking directly toward them. Jonah's jaw tightened. "All right, little machine. You want to play? Let's play." He angled the ship sharply downward, flipping its orientation. In the next second, he fired the rear thrusters at full power while turning the ship's defensive lasers online. A thin beam of white light shot from the Starcatcher's turret, striking the sphere. The sphere flashed but didn't explode. Instead, it healed, right in front of them. Jonah stared in horror. "You've got to be kidding me." "The nanoplague repairs itself," Varys said. "You cannot destroy it with simple weapons." "It's a good time to tell me that," Jonah snapped. Varys reached weakly toward the console. "We can still escape it. The plague is strong but not fast enough for long chases." Jonah breathed hard and adjusted the course. "Then we outrun it." He jumped to hyper mode. The ship's engines roared, charging up the systems that would push them into light speed. The plague sphere darted closer, only meters from the hull. "Come on," Jonah whispered. "Faster!" Varys's hands shook. "If it attaches, it will eat through your ship in minutes." The sphere extended thin, needle-like tendrils. "Come on!" Jonah shouted. With a burst of light, the Starcatcher shot into hyperspace. The stars stretched into long lines, and the plague sphere vanished behind them. Jonah collapsed back into his chair, breathing hard. That was way too close. Varys closed her eyes, exhausted. "The plague remembers life. It sleeps until touched by energy. My ship's collapse must have awakened fragments hiding within." Jonah rubbed his face. "So this thing isn't gone? Even after 2,000 years?" "No," Varys whispered. "The nanoplague does not die. It only waits." Jonah shuddered. "We need to make sure it can't follow us. We need distance." He set the ship on a long jump toward a safer system. Space warped around them as they moved faster than light. After several minutes, Jonah slowed the engines and guided the ship into normal space near a quiet blue star. The silence of the cockpit felt heavy. Varys leaned her head back. "Jonah." He turned to her quickly. "Yeah?" Her breathing was shaky again. Her strength was fading fast. The warmth from earlier had helped her body recover, but it was clear she was still barely holding on. "I need to tell you something," she said. Jonah moved closer. "I'm listening." "In the memory core of my ship, the truth remains," she whispered. "If the plague has awakened here, then you must see what happened to my people. You must understand what you are facing." Jonah frowned. "The memory core? That huge crystal chamber inside your ship? Yes, she whispered. Even if the ship is dead, the core might still contain pieces, visions of our last days. Jonah hesitated. But your ship is breaking apart. Is it safe to go back inside? No, Varys said, but you do not have to. I brought something. She weakly reached into the folds of her ancient clothing. Jonah reached out to help her. Her hands trembled as she pulled out a small diamond-shaped device. Its surface glowed faintly with soft golden patterns. Jonah stared. What is that? A core shard, Varys whispered. I carried it with me when I sealed the pod. It contains the last recorded memories of the Etheri Concord, including the moment we fell. She met Jonah's eyes. Inside this shard is the truth, the plague's origin, and maybe a way to fight it. Jonah took the shard gently. It was warm, warmer than her skin. How do I use it? He asked. It will show you the memories when you power it, she said softly. But be warned, the things you will see are not gentle. Jonah nodded. I can handle it. Varys studied him with tired eyes. Your kind always says that. He placed the shard carefully on the console. We'll figure this out, Varys. We'll face whatever's coming. Varys sighed, closing her eyes. You saved my life, Jonah Hale. But now, you may need to save many more. Jonah looked out at the quiet star in front of them. For the first time, he felt the weight of something huge, something far bigger than an old ship or a lost alien. A threat that had ended an entire civilization might now be waking again. Jonah placed the glowing shard on the ship's console, watching the soft golden patterns shift like moving threads. It was warm in his palm, almost like a gentle heartbeat. Varys breathed weakly behind him, her body still fragile, but her eyes stayed half open as she watched him. Are you ready? Jonah asked softly. Varys nodded. The memories inside may be heavy, but you must see them. Only then will you understand what dangers follow us. Jonah took a deep breath, then tapped the small activation switch at the top of the shard. The cabin lights dimmed, a quiet hum filled the air, and then light burst from the shard like a tiny sun. The images formed not on a screen, but in the air itself. A holographic sphere expanded outward, becoming a wide circle of golden light around Jonah. Varys watched silently as the memories of her world came alive. Jonah saw a planet covered in silver forests and glowing rivers. Tall structures curved like crystal trees. Etheri citizens walked gracefully through floating bridges, their glowing eyes gentle and calm. It was beautiful, Jonah whispered. It was our home, Varys murmured. Then the scene shifted. Black dots appeared in the sky, dust at first, but then more and more and more. The dots moved together like a living cloud. Jonah leaned closer. They were tiny machines, each smaller than a grain of sand, shifting shape as they flew. The nanoplague, Varys said, our enemy's greatest weapon. He watched the cloud descend on a human-sized metal sculpture. The sculpture dissolved instantly, turning into gray dust that scattered in the wind. The scene changed again. Jonah saw ships launching from Etheri cities. He saw Varys, younger, stronger, standing tall at the front of a glowing command center. Her voice echoed through the room as she issued orders. Evacuate the lower cities. Move the children to the outer rings. Jonah's stomach twisted. She looked so different back then, full of power, full of life. Not fragile and fading like the Varys who now lay behind him. The cloud of nanoplague spread faster, covering entire mountains in minutes. It turned vibrant forests into empty gray wasteland. Jonah could almost feel the fear the Etheri must have felt. Then the memories grew darker. He saw cities fall, ships get eaten mid-flight. Massive energy shields break apart like thin ice. The Etheri fleet fought bravely, beams of light cutting through the plague, but every destroyed machine simply repaired itself and multiplied. "We were not ready for something like this," Varys whispered, her voice shaking. "We believed in harmony, not in war." The next memory made Jonah's blood run cold. The plague reached the main city. The Golden Palace towers broke apart into dust. People ran, but the cloud overtook them. Jonah turned away slightly. He didn't want to watch innocent lives vanish. Then he saw Varys again, older, determined, boarding her own ship. "I ordered the retreat," she said softly. "I took the surviving fleet and fled. But the plague followed. We had to lure it away from our last safe world." The memory showed Varys's ship speeding through space, the nanoplague behind it like a storm of black light. Jonah watched as the ship absorbed hits, engines failing, hull cracked open. "I sealed myself in the pod," she whispered. "I believed I could hold the plague inside me until the ship reached the nebula." Her voice trembled. "But the ship was too damaged. The pod was failing even before I entered stasis." The last memory flickered. Varys alone, her body already decaying, climbing into the stasis pod with shaking hands. Jonah felt his throat tighten, and then the memories ended. The golden light faded, leaving the cabin dark and quiet again. Jonah didn't speak for several long seconds. He simply stood there, staring at the space where the memories had been. Varys's breathing was softer now, as if telling the story had drained what little strength she had left. Finally, Jonah turned toward her. "Varys, your people fought so hard." She opened her eyes slowly. "Not hard enough." "That's not true," Jonah said. "You fought until the very last star fell. Anyone would have broken under that." Varys shook her head weakly. "We should have prepared. We should have learned to fight. We did not believe something so cruel could exist." Jonah sat beside her and placed a gentle hand on her arm. "I'm sorry. No one deserves to face something like that." Varys looked at him with dim, glowing eyes. "Now you understand why the plague fragment found us, why it followed us out of the nebula. It remembers any energy it touches." She paused. "And now it remembers you." A chill shot through Jonah. "So what? It's going to hunt me now?" Varys gave a weak nod. "It will hunt anything that moves, anything with power. It will search for us, even across the stars." Jonah rubbed his face. "Great. So we need a plan." "A plan," Varys echoed softly, almost like the word tasted unfamiliar in her mouth. "Humans are known for making plans." Jonah forced a small smile. "We're also known for improvising." But before he could continue, a sharp alarm suddenly rang through the cockpit. Incoming signal. Jonah stiffened. "That can't be the plague. It doesn't send signals." Varys looked confused. "What is it?" Jonah slammed the scanner controls. A new window opened. A glowing dot blinked on the radar, growing larger. "It's a ship," Jonah said. "Humyn. Looks like a patrol vessel." Varys's head tilted slightly. "Human soldiers." Jonah frowned. "Not soldiers. More like peacekeepers. They usually help stranded pilots or escort ships through dangerous regions." The communication screen flickered to life. A man in a dark Navy uniform appeared, his face stern. "This is Captain Orion Vale of the patrol cruiser Horizon's Wake. Identify yourself." Jonah quickly stood. "Jonah Hale, scavenger pilot. My ship is called the Starcatcher. I'm carrying an injured passenger and—" But the captain cut him off. "Your ship is emitting unusual energy signatures," Captain Vale said sharply. "Explain the presence of an unknown life form aboard your vessel." Jonah's heart dropped. "Varys." They scanned her. Varys closed her eyes. "Humans will fear me. I am something they do not know." "I won't let anything happen to you," Jonah said firmly. Captain Vale's voice boomed again. Jonah Hale, prepare for boarding. Failure to comply will be considered an act of resistance. Jonah gritted his teeth. Classic human help, show up late, ask too many questions, and threaten to arrest you. He turned to Varys. Listen, I'm going to talk to them, but they can't see you like this. They'll panic. Varys looked weak but calm. Do what you must. I trust you. Jonah nodded and opened the communication line again. Captain Vale, my passenger is injured. She's not dangerous. We will determine that, the captain said coldly. Jonah forced a smile. I've never resisted a boarding before, but I'm asking, please let me explain first. Her species is ancient. She needs medical attention, not jail. A long silence followed. Finally, Captain Vale sighed. You have 1 minute to explain before we board. Jonah glanced at Varys. She gave him a tiny nod. So Jonah explained everything, but not all of it. He told Vale he found an alien survivor in a wreck. He described her weakness, her injuries, and her fragile state. But he did not mention the nanoplague. He did not mention her 2,000-year sleep. And he did not mention the plague fragment that chased them. Humans didn't always react well to threats they didn't understand. Captain Vale listened silently. When Jonah finished, the captain closed his eyes for a moment, thinking. Then he opened them again. Very well, Jonah Hale. We will send a medical drone aboard to examine your passenger. If she is stable, we will escort you to a safe station. Jonah almost collapsed with relief. Thank you. But be warned, Vale said. If there is any sign your alien passenger poses a danger, we will take action. Jonah nodded. Understood. The screen shut off. Jonah turned to Varys. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were gentle. You protected me, she whispered, just as I believed. Jonah smiled faintly. I'm not done yet. He checked the sensors. The medical drone launched from the patrol ship, speeding toward them with soft blue lights. But something else blinked on the radar. A second dot, much smaller, but moving much faster. Jonah's eyes widened. No. Varys's voice was barely a breath. The plague, it has found us. The medical drone drew closer, but so did the plague fragment, streaking across space like a silver spark. 2 threats, 1 human, 1 machine, and Varys fading on the seat. Jonah gripped the controls. All right, he whispered. Time for a human plan. The Starcatcher floated between 2 threats, a human patrol drone on one side, coming to help, and a deadly nano-plague fragment speeding toward them like a silver needle of doom. Jonah's fingers tightened on the controls. Sweat gathered on his forehead despite the ship's cool air. He glanced behind him at Varys. Her skin was pale, her breathing slow, but her glowing eyes stayed open, watching, trusting. Jonah, she whispered. I know, he said. I see it. The plague fragment raced closer. The radar showed it gaining speed, cutting through space like a perfect hunter. Jonah's heart hammered inside him. Not only was Varys in danger, but if the plague reached the human patrol ship, it would copy their weapons, their engines, their technology, and then it would spread. No way I'm letting that happen, Jonah muttered. He looked at Varys. Hold on. I'm going to do something stupid. Varys nodded weakly. Humans often survive with stupid plans. Jonah grinned despite the danger. Exactly. He slammed a switch on the control panel. The Starcatcher's engines roared, bursting forward at full power. The sudden acceleration pushed Jonah back into his seat. The medical drone from the human patrol ship drifted past them, confused by the sudden movement. Captain Vale's voice crackled through the radio. Pilot Jonah Hale, what are you doing? Slow down at once. No time, Jonah yelled back. There's something behind us, something dangerous. Explain yourself or... But Jonah cut the channel. The plague fragment zipped past the medical drone, ignoring it completely. Its target was clear. Jonah and Varys. Jonah aimed the starcatcher downward, skimming close to the patrol ship's hull. He flew so near that warning lights flashed red, screaming at him that he was too close. The human captain reappeared on the screen, furious. "Hail! You are endangering my ship!" Jonah shouted back. "Better your pride than your life! That thing behind us will eat your ship if I don't stop it!" Vale blinked, stunned. "What thing? What are you talking about?" Before the captain could finish, the silver plague fragment streaked past the patrol ship's sensors. Alarms exploded across the cruiser. "What? What is that?" Vale shouted. "Something that destroyed Varys' entire civilization," Jonah shouted. "Now shut up and follow my lead." For the first time, Captain Vale didn't argue. Jonah swung the ship around and shot toward the patrol cruiser's engine wash. The larger cruiser's thrusters glowed bright blue, heating the space around them. Varys suddenly understood. "Jonah, you are using the human ship's heat to confuse it." Jonah nodded. "The plague tracks energy. If I fly close enough through their engine wash, maybe it'll lose my signature." "And follow theirs instead," Varys finished softly. Jonah tightened his grip on the controls. "I know it's risky, but if we don't confuse it, it won't stop chasing us." Varys raised a weak hand. "Jonah, you risk angering your own people." He smirked. "Wouldn't be the first time." The ship dipped into the bright blue glow behind the patrol cruiser. The engines blasted waves of heated air and particles across the starcatcher's hull. The ship rattled violently. The plague fragment slowed for a moment, its shape flickering, as if confused by the sudden flood of mixed energy signatures. Jonah held his breath. The plague hovered, scanning, listening, and then it darted toward the patrol cruiser. "No!" Jonah shouted. "It picked them!" Varys' eyes widened. "Jonah, you must help them. You cannot leave them to die." He already knew that. Jonah spun the ship around. "Captain Vale, that thing is heading for your engines. If it touches them—" Vale's voice returned in a shaky whisper. "We see it, but we can't target it. Our weapons read it as dust." "It's not dust. Aim for its shadow," Jonah yelled. Vale hesitated only a second. "Firing!" The patrol cruiser shot a beam of blue light, hitting the tiny shadow cast by the plague fragment. The fragment swerved, repairing itself instantly, then turned back toward the patrol ship. Jonah knew this couldn't last. "We need another plan," he shouted. Varys raised her hand weakly. "Jonah, come here." He rushed to her side. "Varys, what is it?" Her glowing eyes softened. "I still carry a trace of the plague inside me, in my blood. It is faint, but the plague will sense it stronger than any engine." Jonah's heart dropped. "Varys, please don't say what I think you're saying." She touched his arm gently. "If I release a little of my energy, it will draw the fragment to me. Just for a moment." "No," Jonah whispered. "No, you're too weak." "I am already dying," she said calmly. "But you are not, and the humans on that cruiser are not. Let me help." Jonah shook his head, refusing. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself." Varys managed a small smile. "I am not asking to die. I am asking to be free. For the first time since the plague came, I want to choose my fate." Her hand trembled as she placed it near the console. A faint glow spread from her palm, filling the air like drifting silver dust. The plague fragment reacted instantly. It changed direction, straight toward the starcatcher. Jonah cursed and jumped back into the pilot's seat. "Varys, keep your energy low. Don't burn yourself out." "I will try," she whispered. Jonah pushed the engines to maximum. "Captain Vale, it's coming for us. I'm leading it away from your ship. Follow me only if absolutely necessary." Vale's voice returned, shaken. "Jonah Hale, good luck. We will stand by if you need support." The patrol cruiser stayed behind as Jonah shot forward, the plague fragment trailing like a silver ghost. Varys's faint energy glow pulsed, guiding it. Jonah aimed for the thickest cluster of asteroids nearby. The rocks were enormous, drifting slowly in cold space. "If this thing is hard to kill," Jonah muttered, "then maybe I can bury it." He dodged between rocks, banking left and right. The fragment chased perfectly, never slowing, never tiring. "Just a little more," Jonah whispered. He spotted a giant asteroid with a massive crack down the middle, like a mouth waiting to close. "That's it," Jonah said. "Varys, hold your glow steady." She nodded weakly, her breathing shallow. Jonah flew straight into the asteroid's crack. The starcatcher barely fit between the stone walls. The plague fragment zipped in behind him. When Jonah reached the far side, he fired both side thrusters at once. The ship spun, shot upward, and escaped the crack. The plague fragment was not so lucky. As it tried to turn, its silver form scraped the rock wall. The tendrils snagged. For a moment, the fragment flickered. The asteroid's movement caused the crack to shift, and then, thoom! The two sides of the asteroid crashed together, crushing the plague fragment between them. Sparks of silver light scattered into dust. Jonah held his breath. The radar blinked. The plague icon faded, then disappeared completely. Varys collapsed back into her seat, the glow around her dying down. "It is gone," she whispered. Jonah felt tears in his eyes. "We did it." But Varys didn't smile. Her head rested against the seat. Her breathing was faint, too faint. Jonah knelt beside her. "Varys, stay with me." Her eyes opened slowly, glowing dimly. "Jonah, thank you." He grabbed her hand. "Don't you dare leave now. We survived." Varys shook her head gently. "My time is ending. The plague inside me is fading. My body cannot survive much longer." Jonah felt his heart break. "Please, we can get help. Human medicine, alien medicine, someone can save you." Her lips curved in a tiny smile. "Jonah Hale, you already saved me." He shook his head, choking up. "I didn't save you. I just found you." "Yes," she whispered. "You found me. You opened the hatch. When everyone else forgot me." A tear traced down her cheek. "You gave me freedom, a final sunrise after 2,000 years of darkness." Jonah pressed his forehead to her hand. "You deserved more." "Maybe," she breathed, "but I am grateful. For this." Her breathing slowed. "Jonah," she whispered. "Yes," he said, holding her hand tight. "What do humans do when someone is free at last?" Jonah swallowed hard. "We let them rest." Varys smiled gently, and with a final breath, the light in her eyes faded. The cabin was silent. Jonah closed her eyes with trembling fingers. "Goodbye, Varys." He sat there for a long time, feeling the weight of the universe pressing around him. Outside, the stars shone quietly, unaware of the ancient life that had just ended. Epilogue. The patrol cruiser escorted Jonah to a safe human station. Jonah gave a full report, not of the plague, but of the brave alien woman he saved. He kept her shard, kept her memory, and kept the promise he made to her, to live forward. Weeks later, Jonah returned to space alone. He placed a small metal marker in the nebula, a memorial drifting gently where Varys had awakened. A message etched on it read, "Varys of the Etheri, you were free at last. You will never be forgotten." As Jonah flew away, the nebula shimmered behind him, and across the stars ancient signals began to stir, signals older than Varys herself. Jonah didn't know it yet, but the fight she started was not over. But humans had something no ancient species ever did: hope. And that, Jonah believed, was enough to change any fate.